Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, a Burley underscore adopter on the burning remains of Twitter, and Burley adopter on a couple of other places, some of those newer social things that you've probably heard about. Before we get into tonight's first topic, first off, if you're in the chat, if you want to join us in the chat, please feel free to do so. We love to have your commentary, your opinions on our opinions and our bits of news. And we do reply to them in real time. Not quite replying in real time to the spam bot that apparently joined us on Facebook. So thanks for giving us some numbers, spam bot. Excellent. Sorry for hiding your post. And before we get into the rest of the news, or the first of the news, I should say, we'll do our promo like we usually do. And that is, if you have a Twitch account, we'd love to have you follow us there. We are currently streaming this live on Twitch, on that URL that's on your screen right there, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, as well as Facebook Live and YouTube, so we can get this spread out to as many people as we possibly can. But Twitch, we don't have the same numbers that we have on Facebook or YouTube. Love to build that following there like we have on those other platforms. So if you have a Twitch account, love to have you check us out, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. All right. Getting right into the first thing, and the first thing is something new, or we're going to have a new aspect to these stories. And as you can see, maybe you can't, there we go. I'm putting up a content warning for our first topic, and it is tangentially related to domestic violence. That is not the topic of the actual story, but it is the story itself is triggered by a story about domestic violence. It's an update on the Justin Roiland story from last week. Pardon me. So that will stay up there, and it will be in the graphic until we're done with this topic. If this makes you uncomfortable, you'll know when you can come back to listening to the show when that disappears. And we'll continue doing this with other topics. There aren't any in this show that are like that, but we will continue doing this with other topics that might be as we go forward. And I wish I could say I was smart enough to have thought about that, but this is a suggestion of other team members, so all credit to them for doing this. I am smart enough to listen to them when they suggested it, so I'll give myself that little bit of credit. So, we are into this story, and the story is, we talked last week about how co-creator of Rick and Morty, Justin Roiland, had been charged with domestic violence back in 2020, but for some reason the charges were sealed and were just partially opened up the past couple of months. But based on those charges, Adult Swim, a function of Cartoon Network, therefore a function of Warner Brothers Discovery, has said that they are no longer going to be associated with Roiland. He is off Rick and Morty. He is the voice of Rick, so they will have to recast Rick, as well as the voice of a whole bunch of other things. But they said they are doing that, and they will continue to produce. I believe they're in season 6 production right now. That is the first shoe to drop on this. There is no word from Hulu, which currently runs Roiland's other series, 2 other series actually, Solar Opposites, which has been running for a couple of seasons, and his brand new one, Koala Man. As to whether or not they will keep him on, they will drop him, whatever. Hulu, of course, being now a not wholly, but predominantly major-owned subsidiary of Disney. So whether or not the mouse is going to be dealing with this or not, who knows. But he's out of Rick and Morty anyway, and he was a pretty important part of Rick and Morty. So they'll have to do recasting now. As Jeff threw from my mother's basement posted on Twitter just a little while ago. Oh gosh, they'd have to search far and wide, like to find somebody who can do the Rick voice, like I don't know, the local shopping mall or a convenience store. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who do the Rick voice, and they could probably hire somebody in a second. I would suggest actually getting a voice actor to do that, but yeah, it's up to them. Anyway, that's news. We're not going to touch on the domestic violence aspect of it. We talked about that last week. There's not really a whole lot of detail to go into anyway. The person that was alleged to be the victim of the domestic violence is just identified as a Jane Doe, and there are no details about the violence, about the actual action. So, but we're still going to put those things up there whenever this is something that that is going to come up. Disney Prince 14, welcome to the show, and indeed. So that's it for this particular topic. This is all new to me putting up here, so it's going to take me a second to remember where to turn that off. Apparently, I can't turn it off from here. I have to turn it off after I've done a fade out. So let's try that. Let's try that. And let's go back. There we are. Okay. All right. So that's that. That's the end of that topic. Moving on to something way cooler, much more interesting. Actually, we got a bunch of really interesting topics here. Luminous, hello. Yeah. Off topic. I'll just address this real quick. And I got another thing that's a little off topic. I forgot about this. Luminous says, I'm really enjoying Andor. It makes me want to watch THX 1138 again. That's interesting. I can see that. I'll beat that dead horse again. Andor is the best Star Wars intellectual property ever made, period, hands down. The best acting, the best directing. When the Emmys nominations come out, if Stellan Skarsgård doesn't have an Emmy nomination, it'll be a crime. It's so good. There is nothing in the Star Wars actually produced and presented broadcast canon, film, television, streaming, whatever, that comes close to the level of writing in that show. But yeah, all right, back off that dead horse. The other thing, before we get into our next topic, which is really cool, as I said, and this is just, I happened to discover this, literally listening to the news an hour ago, so Everything Everywhere All at Once was nominated for 11 Academy Awards this morning, and it deserves every one of them. It's one of the most amazingly creative, innovative, wildly innovative, trippy science fiction movies you'll ever see that at its core is actually a family drama. But I had no idea that the co-writers and co-directors, the Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, were both graduates of Emerson College right here, right a couple of miles down that way, in Boston. So good on you, Emerson. Keep producing people that wildly creative, please. Luminous, some of the visual style of Andor reminds me of THX 1138, but it's been a long time, so I might be wrong. I get that, particularly the way they are presenting, and again, we're talking about Andor, it's not on the topics, but that's okay. The way they present the look of the post-Empire takeover of Coruscant. If you look at the prequels, Coruscant is just busy as hell. It's a New York meets whatever, New York of The Fifth Element almost meets Las Vegas at times. It's just lit up and wild with actual Washington D.C. or whatever massive monumental structures and buildings as well that are government things. Once the Empire takes over, a lot of that disappears and it becomes a very sterile looking city. And I think that's what you're thinking about as far as the visual style. There are other parts of it that kind of look like, THX 1138, but Coruscant, it really gives you that sort of feeling, or it does to me. So I get that. That makes sense. Moving on to our next topic, this is Stephen Colbert with a bunch of the cast members of The Lord of the Rings. And the news is about Stephen Colbert. And this is from the rap video he made when Lord of the Rings was named the #1 film trilogy of all time. And the news is that Colbert is taking on a role as a producer in the attempt to get a series adaptation of one of the other absolute classic works of fantasy, Roger Zelazny's Chronicles of Amber. If you've never read the Chronicles of Amber, it's one of my absolute favorite pieces of fantasy from a guy who I first came into knowing as a science fiction author. But he is also of the science fiction new wave period, so he is very much a literate, aware, he is a writer, he is an author. And his characters are incredibly complex. The world concept of Amber is just mind-blowing. It's a wonderful, wonderful series. Because the characters are so complex, and the basic structure of the story is about a dynastic succession struggle among 9 princes. The first book is 9 Princes in Amber. It's basically Game of Thrones 30 years prior to the first book of Game of Thrones, without, the sex and violence, to that extent anyway, that you have Game of Thrones. But it is part of the new wave. It is part of the new wave science fiction and fantasy, so it's a lot more adult than, say, Tolkien works, or something prior to that. It's really good. This has apparently been in production or in an attempt to make this for more than 10 years. 7 years. I'm sorry. And the other producer is Robert Kirkman, The Walking Dead. Kirkman apparently got the rights 7 years ago to do this, and they've been working on it ever since. And now that Colbert is involved, the fantasy icon, Stephen Colbert, fantasy fan icon at least, I really hope they get this rolling fast. They're looking for a primary writer who I would assume would be the showrunner. There are 10 books in this series. There are 2 sets of 5-book runs. The first, the Chronicles of Corwin, and then the Chronicles of Merlin. Or they call it the Corwin cycle and the Merlin cycle. They're really, really good books. And I really hope they get this adaptation rolling so that, maybe by 2025 we get, the first of years and years worth of quality fantasy streaming entertainment, wherever it lands. I mean, obviously they're in, production, the very beginning of production of trying to get this to happen. So, who knows where it'll even land when it does. But if you're not familiar with the Chronicles of Amber and you're a fantasy fan, particularly of smart, literate, well-written, intelligent fantasy, check out the Chronicles of Amber. Or wait however many years it takes again to get this thing off the ground and, watch the show. Or do both. So really excited about this. I can't wait. I hope it gets pushed along really fast now that Colbert is behind it. We'll keep on top of this. I'll definitely keep on top of this. It's not quite as big an obsession as, say, Dune was for me. So I won't be putting literally every bit of news that drops like I did with Dune. And apologies to anybody who found that boring. But as big stuff happens with this, when they name, a showrunner, when they start naming cast, things like that, then we'll have more updates. All right. Our next topic. I don't know if you've seen Violent Night, but if you haven't, you really should. And the news is that Violent Night, the wildly violent story of Santa getting stuck in a situation where he has to go pre-medieval, actually, on a whole bunch of bad guys is getting a sequel. There will be a Violent Night 2. This is according to this, the director, Tommy Wirkola, in an interview with The Wrap, said that the sequel is already in development and they're working on deals to bring everyone back, including, of course, David Harbour, who plays Santa. This was one of those out of left field kind of movies. I was literally sitting on a couch at my brother and sister-in-law's house when their plans for their Christmas period vacation got completely screwed over by the Southwest debacle. And so we're sitting there and so what are we going to look, let's watch something. They were flipping through the channels and said, what is this Violent Night? And my brother almost went, yeah, I don't know, whatever it is, but my sister-in-law isn't big on this sort of stuff. And she's like, I don't know. And then maybe that's the kind of thing I want. I'm like, all right. So we watched it and mind blown. It's made by the same, I guess they're a production company now, or at least there's an aspect of them that's a production company, but it's the stunt and action company that made John Wick. That basically came up with all of the action scenes and the idea of John Wick. So you bet that the violence is top tier. The cast is really good. I can't remember the actor's name. I'm going to bring the picture back up here. The guy in the foreground is sort of the main character, aside from obviously David Harbour's Santa. He was the guy that played Vicious in the terrible Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop. And I've seen him in a couple of things since then. He is really good. He's a very good actor. He is very much way better than the role he was given as Vicious. So check it out. I can't wait to see this. I hope that, this came completely out of left field. I don't know that anybody was talking about this. I had heard of it, I think, because of Twitter memes, prior to actually seeing it come up on my brother's, whatever platform we were on, his TV. And so I knew sort of what it was about, but literally I had heard nothing about it. We never talked about this on this show. Just never came up. Now, I guarantee we're going to be talking about it later on when the sequel, whether it is called Violent Night 2 or whatever, comes out or is about to come out, because this was a sleeper hit. Just completely came in from left field. And again, I recommend it highly if you like really bloody, violent, John Wick-esque kind of action with a very funny and very fantasy element, obviously, because you've got Santa. And John Leguizamo as the bad guy. Always a good choice to have John Leguizamo as anything, but as a bad guy. So, yeah. Check out Violent Night if you haven't seen it. Definitely check out Violent Night 2 when it comes out, and we'll be talking about it, even further. All right, our next topic. Okay, now we're going to go from two really cool stories back to, okay, this doesn't require a content warning, but yeah, that's Jared Leto. And this is one of the most disappointing pieces of news I've seen in a long time. The news is, this is coming out of Deadline as an exclusive, but again, it's Deadline, that the third Tron movie, which will be called Tron Aries, is looking to have Jared Leto star. They are apparently in close or deep discussions with Leto. They have been, I guess, for years. And they are looking to sign Joachim Ronning as the director. The Maleficent sequel, Maleficent Mistress of Evil, and the Pirates of the Caribbean sequel, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Okay, journeyman work. I actually haven't seen Mistress of Evil. I loved Maleficent. I thought it was great. I've heard okay things about the sequel. Dead Men Tell No Tales I've seen, and it was, you know, enjoyable for what it was. Definitely not the best of the series. Um, but this is, according to Deadline, absolutely a sequel to Tron Legacy. So we don't know what the story is. We don't know whether Bridges' character is going to be in it. But they are describing it as, you know, there's no question this is a sequel to Tron Legacy. So, you know, I am very uncomfortable with obviously promoting anything that Leto is in. It's a shame because he is an amazingly talented actor. He was not the worst thing about Morbius, hands down. But still, it's Leto. So, you know, do with that information what you will, folks. It's obviously your choice to decide if this actually does happen. That whether or not you're going to go see, you know, Leto in the latest Tron thing. It didn't stop me from loving Blade Runner 2049. So, but then again, he wasn't really the star. He wasn't even really he was the behind the scenes main villain, but he wasn't even really the main antagonist villain. Luminous, I love your thinking. Luminous says, then they should add Lindsay Lohan to Tron 3. Leto and Lohan, bring popcorn. That's genius. That is absolutely genius. That would probably be so bad that the fans might actually do what they did with Morbius. You know, ironically be so thrilled with the movie that it gets a second release. Anyway. Yeah, so we don't know when this is going to happen. As I said, you know, obviously they're just now trying to pin down the director and the star. Let's see. The script is written by Jesse Wigatow. Don't know who that is. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Justin Springer, who produced Tron Legacy, is producing along with Leto. Well, if Leto's producing, you know, chances are. I just discovered this, and apparently we never talked about this. Leto is apparently next going to co-star in Disney's Haunted Mansion. Come on, Disney. Do better with your casting. All right, much better story. This is an image from the exclusive images that were given to Entertainment Weekly of the 30th anniversary Netflix special that reunites many of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So obviously you've got David Yost, the Blue Ranger, right there in the front. I would love to be able to identify the other people. That's Catherine Sutherland, because in the teaser that's coming up, it shows me there on the right. Yeah, I don't know who the others are. I know Johnny Young Bosch is coming back as a Red Ranger. Walter E. Jones is coming back as well. This is hitting Netflix very soon. And I'm going to scroll down here and see if I can get an actual date on this. Not that soon. This fall. An unspecified this fall. But we do get a first look. This is your first look at it. If you want to check out, you know, the Entertainment Weekly, you know, EW.com, or buy the magazine, you get all sorts of pictures of the cast. Luminous, too soon? I'm going to go with too soon. But yes, Jason David Frank did not participate. And in fact, the article points out that they don't know how they're going to deal with it, or if they're even going to address it at all. That's, you know, they haven't seen anything or enough of the script, the story, the special, whatever. Now, when I say special, this is an actual Power Rangers story. It is not a a documentary style look back at the Power Rangers. This is a new story using the original cast, which is why you get scenes like that. So if you're a Power Rangers fan and you've been looking forward to seeing something like this, and you like watching them, I've seen Yost and Jones at a panel at Rhode Island Comic Con with Jason David Frank. In fact, I took photos of it the first Rhode Island Comic Con. And if you want to see them back in the action as opposed to just at a panel, this Netflix special is for you. So sometime in late fall, you'll get to see the originals, or many of the originals, back. All right, moving on to our next, and this is our first trailer. Luminous, yes, the news about Jason David Frank was very sad, as it was. They dropped yesterday a new trailer for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It doesn't reveal anything particularly new, although there's a lot of new footage, and a lot of it plays up the humor, which I like. I think that's a good sign for this movie. And it's funny, unlike the one back in the 90s or early 2000s, where they tried to be funny at times and weren't. In this case, there's a lot to like and laugh about with this. You get to see a little bit more of Hugh Grant, and he is just hilarious. And go check out the trailer yourself, but it ends with them encountering a red dragon, and it is the chonkiest, fattest, cute in the sense of he's just such a chubby boy. He's trying to kill them, but it's just the best design of a dragon I've seen in a long time. It's really cool. They once again play up on the fact that they are really relying on the traditions of D&D. There's a mimic chest which you get to see. There's a gelatinous cube in a previous trailer. It's really a solid looking trailer that probably makes me more excited for this than any of the previous trailers. This looks like they've got the idea down right. Michelle Rodriguez as a barbarian, as a female barbarian, is just perfect. You couldn't cast better than that. So if you're a fan, check it out. Again, it's not going to give away anything that hasn't been already shown in any of the previous trailers or commercials. You just see a little bit more of the sort of action and comedy stuff, and it makes me really excited to go see it. Assuming I'm going to go see anything. We have this coming out. I should have looked this up. I'm sorry, folks. I don't know when this is coming out. It is coming out this year, and fairly soon, because they're in their latest trailer. But exactly when, don't have it in this article, and I didn't think to look it up. All right, moving on to our next to the last topic, and that is, this is basically just going to be a pretty quick topic because it's just an article in which Mark Hamill has finally stated pretty definitively that he's not going to do the Joker, and that is, of course, him as the Joker from Batman the Animated Series, going forward, mainly because he can't really see doing the Joker if Kevin Conroy isn't doing Batman. And of course, Kevin Conroy passed away late last year. So, that rumor has been floating around for a while. Now he's pretty much confirmed it in an interview with Empire Magazine. He does not believe he will be returning as Joker following the death of Kevin Conroy. He says, this is a quote from it, "We were like partners, we were like Laurel and Hardy. Without Kevin there doesn't seem to be a Batman for me." Does that mean it'll never happen? Money talks. And who knows? Now, Hamill doesn't need the money at this point, I'm pretty sure. So, whether or not, that is something that, would be enough, they could throw enough money at him to entice him to change his mind on this. Who knows? Anything could happen down the road. But he seems pretty sincere about it. And there are plenty of other people who have done the Joker voice and do it pretty well. So, I don't have a problem with him letting that mantle be passed on to other people. He did a great job. His run as the Joker was absolutely fantastic. If he wants to no longer do that because of the circumstances of Kevin Conroy's death, more power to him. There are plenty of other things. He can continue to, sell the rights to his body, face, and voice to, the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff for the rest of eternity. And we'll get, more Luke Skywalkers just popping in on random shows. I just realized, of course, he's going to be, in the Ahsoka series at some point, even if it's just in a flashback or, maybe not. Anyway, yeah, so Mark Hamill, pretty much done with the Joker. I'm fine with that. I'll miss his voice. But again, there are plenty of other people who do pretty solid jobs that aren't Mark Hamill. And it's not like he doesn't have other things that are paying him ridiculous amounts of money, so he doesn't need the work. All right, now it's time to move into our last topic, and that is the teaser. You can't really call it a trailer, for Invincible Season 2 dropped. And basically, the reason you can't call it a trailer is because it doesn't show really anything about the upcoming season. It is, this is of course actually a clip or a screen grab from the first season with Invincible and Adam Eve. Lumina says, I watched the Invincible Season 2 trailer. That's the way to make a trailer. So basically, it is literally just Mark in his Invincible costume sitting at a diner across the table from Alan the Alien, who's played by Seth Rogen. And they're talking about what they've been up to since the last time they encountered each other, which is both in story, in universe, what they've been up to, and they kind of break the fourth wall as part of describing what they've been up to. And it's funny. It's really cool. It eventually lets you know that it will be late 2023 when we'll finally get to see season 2 of Invincible. And that's fine. That's better than not 2023. Pushing this out to 2024 would just suck. But I'm really looking forward to it. And if you are as well and you haven't seen this, go watch it. It's really funny. It's a really cool way to basically just sort of drop a kind of date announcement. A time, a date range announcement. Let's put it that way. With a lot of humor and, getting a look at some of these characters that you really enjoyed from the original season. So check it out, and we will definitely be talking about this in doing reviews and so on when this finally drops late 2023. Hope it's not too late. But that's it, folks. That is the show. Before we leave, our second internal promo is that if you are of a mind to do so, please go check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you be a patron. Help us out getting to more cons now that cons are coming back. We're still doing them safely. And again, I'll just hammer this home. Please wear your mask if you're out in a crowd to protect yourself and to protect other people. I, knock wood, made it out of Arisia safely. Arisia is doing an excellent job of passing around the email communication about people who have tested positive, and they're up to 7 now, some of whom were on staff. And these are people who are voluntarily reporting this to Aresia, so who knows how many people actually came down with COVID out of that convention. It's the smart thing. Just do it, folks. Wear a mask. Good night, Luminous, back at you. And we will see you folks at an upcoming con. Let's see, what did I say our next one is? We got people at KatsuCon coming up in February. I will be at PAX East at the end of March. Then, of course, we have Anime Boston. I will be the assistant photo department manager this year in early April, the second weekend in April. As always, of course, the Easter weekend. And so more cons are happening. And yes, I'll be wearing a mask at all of them. So we'll see you then or at our next show. Good night and bye-bye.